U.S. Army Europe, Lieutenant General Mark Hertling. Allie, what are you hearing from lawmakers in reaction to this latest reporting about Hegseth?
Well, the condemnation is not bipartisan, at least not yet, but the concern certainly is. And I think that's a rarity in this Washington, where you've seen Republicans especially really fall in line with the White House. So even as you have the president out there defending the head of the Pentagon, you also have members of Congress in bipartisan fashion saying not only are they concerned, but they want to investigate and they want to learn more. Listen to just a few of the lawmakers as they took to the Sunday shows this weekend, Anna.
What we're doing down there does not adhere to any law that we've had. But what Trump and Hegseth are saying is, law doesn't apply to us. We can do whatever we want.
Obviously, if that occurred, that would be very serious, and I agree that would be an illegal act.
If what has been reported is accurate, I've got serious concerns about anybody in that chain of command stepping over a line that they should never step over, going after survivors in the water. That is clearly not lawful.
And I think what's important here, Anna, is the concern is renewed, certainly, in light of the Washington Post reporting that you detailed at the beginning of the segment. But there was already concern on Capitol Hill about the way that the administration was going about these strikes writ large. The idea that during the times that they actually had been briefed by the administration, members felt like they didn't get to meet with lawyers or hear the legal underpinnings that the administration was using to justify these strikes in the first place. So not only are there questions about if they should be doing these strikes, but now on top of it, this idea of a potential double tap, which, of course, runs afoul of the Geneva Convention and other things.
General, it has been days since this Washington Post report came out. President Trump says he'll get to the truth. How hard should it be to find out what happened?
It should not be hard at all, Anna. There's a film of the original strike. There has to be a film of the secondary strike because you always have those kind of cameras and painting with lasers for any time a bomb hits. And it's simply important to not only get Secretary Hegseth to testify before Congress, but also various other people, the individuals that were part of the Special Operations Command that were involved in this incident, the trigger pullers, Admiral Halsey, who, as you know, put in his retirement paper after disagreements with the administration, his lawyer, who was evidently, by reports, pushed to the side by the civilian lawyers within DOD. These would all be individuals who could testify as to what happened. And truthfully, as Allie just said, this situation is so grave, not because it's partisan politics, but because it suggests senior civilian leaders may have urged action that violated the law of armed conflict, basic proportionality, and a longstanding commitment from the United States to minimize harm to defenseless civilians. And most importantly, from my perspective, it places service members who must refuse illegal or unlawful orders in an impossible position because they're caught between their legal obligation, their moral conscience, which hasn't been discussed all that much, and the pressure of civilian authority.
Secretary Hegseth does say that all the current operations in the Caribbean are lawful under both U.S. and international law and have been approved by the best military and civilian lawyers. General, what are the laws governing strikes like this?
Well, when you're talking about striking against someone who's wounded and clinging to debris, that's an individual that's termed, there's a formal term for it, it's called hors de combat. He or she is outside the fight, protected under the Geneva Convention.
2 men were blown apart in the water. MS Now has not independently verified the report by the Washington Post. President Trump put out this video of the attack later that day, but it did not show any footage of a subsequent strike. Now, Republican-led committees in both chambers of Congress are pushing back, and the top Republican and Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee, Republican Roger Wicker of Mississippi and Democrat Jack Reed of Rhode Island, said, quote, "We will be conducting vigorous oversight to determine the facts related to these circumstances." And the House Armed Services Committee echoed that vow, saying it is, quote, "committed to providing rigorous oversight and are taking bipartisan action to gather a full accounting of the operation in question." On Capitol Hill, Republicans and Democrats alike are calling the allegations serious, illegal.
Let's just stop here. Again, Republicans and Democrats alike. And it's not backbench Republicans. It's not Thomas Massie. It is Chairman Roger Wicker, the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. You have the chairman of the Republican House Armed Services Committee. Again, in the House, you have Mike Turner, a powerful voice in the Republican Party on all things regarding armed services, all of them deeply disturbed and demanding that this be investigated.
Serious, illegal, and potentially a war crime. Here's just a sampling of some of their opinions on this.
Congress does not have information that that had occurred. Both the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, and ranking members have opened investigations. Obviously, if that occurred, that would be very serious, and I agree that would be an illegal act.
If the facts go to where the Washington Post article takes it, well, then we'll have to go from there. But if it was as if the article said, that is a violation of the law of war. When people want to surrender, you don't kill them, and they have to pose an imminent threat. It's hard to believe that two people on a raft trying to survive would pose an imminent threat.
If that reporting is true, it's a clear violation of the DOD's own laws of war, as well as international laws about the way you treat people who are in that circumstance. And so this rises to the level of a war crime if it's true. And the questions that we've been asking for months are, give us the evidence that the folks on board were really narco traffickers.
The former JAGS working group said that it unanimously considered the reported orders to kill everybody aboard the suspected narco-trafficking vessel and the execution of those orders to constitute war crimes, murder, or both. The group, which includes former officials who served as legal advisors for the military, issued the following statement in response to the Washington Post reporting on that September 2nd attack on a boat in the Caribbean. The group's statement reads in part, if the U.S. military operation to interdict and destroy suspected narco-trafficking vessels is a non-international armed conflict, as the Trump administration suggests, orders to kill everybody, which can reasonably be regarded as an order to give no quarter and to double tap a target in order to kill survivors, are clearly illegal under international law. In short, they are war crimes. The group continues, if the U.S. military operation is not an armed conflict of any kind, these orders to kill helpless civilians clinging to the wreckage of a vessel our military destroyed would subject everyone from SecDef down to the individual who pulled the trigger to prosecution under U.S. law for murder. We call upon Congress to investigate and the American people to oppose any use of the U.S. military that involves the intentional targeting of anyone, enemy combatants, non-combatants, or civilians, rendered hors de combat, out of the fight, as a result of their wounds or the destruction of the ship or aircraft carrying them. We will also advise our fellow citizens that orders like those described above are the kinds of patently illegal orders, or all military members have a duty to disobey.
This is important. Jack Goldsmith, the former head of the Office of Legal Counsel in George W. Bush's administration, writes that if the Washington Post's reporting is accurate, the actions taken are in violation of the Department of Defense's own manual, which prohibits the killing of shipwrecked enemies and constitutes a war crime. Goldsmith cites the DOD's Law of War manual, which reads in part, it is forbidden to declare that no quarter will be given. This means it is prohibited to order that legitimate offers of surrender will be refused, or that detainees, such as unprivileged belligerents, will be summarily executed. Goldsmith continues, the DOD manual is clear because the law here is clear. Quote, persons who have been incapacitated by shipwreck are in a helpless state. This is the DOD manual.
what Hegseth did is increasingly being described as a war crime. But it's even hard to call it that because it's not even an official act of war. So a lot of people, I think with reason, are just calling it plain old, like, murder. Like, right? Like, this isn't an act of war. Like, not officially, right? Like, the United States hasn't declared war on Venezuela or whoever in this case. They're just kind of blowing ships out of the water. And so that in and of itself just might be extrajudicial killing. But if we operate under the assumption that those bombings are fine, or at least have a fig leaf of legal defensibility, what Hegseth did, or at least what people are saying he did, is either a war crime or it's just a crime. And here's the thing, he's pleading guilty to it in public, and he's deleting things. He shared an image, like a mock image of like a children's cartoon book, where it's like, you know, Franklin goes and takes out the bad guys, the narco terrorists or whatnot. You kind of mimicking what he did and basically saying he has no apologies. While on the other hand, the administration is trying to do damage control, saying, well, actually, this didn't happen, and Pete said it didn't happen, and all of this. Look, he's admitted it. They're going to use his memes in court. And remember what a Democratic... and this was reported by the Washington Post over the weekend when this story was just breaking, you know, after Thanksgiving or so. They said, it's going to take time, but people will go to prison over this. And I think person number one to go to prison probably should be Trump. He's ultimately the commander-in-chief. But it's going to be Pete Hegseth.